Libra, there was a conversation. You were not in the room. You were not on the call. You had no idea it was happening, no sense of it unfolding in real time, no awareness that somewhere in the world, in the private space between two people who know you, your name was being spoken with a weight and a tenderness and a level of honesty that would stop you completely if you could have heard it. You were the subject of something significant, and what was said about you, the actual content of it, the feeling behind it, the things that were admitted in that unguarded space that would never have been said directly to your face is going to change the way you understand several things you thought you already had figured out. Let me tell you what happened. Someone who carries feelings for you, feelings they have been managing carefully, presenting at a controlled temperature to the world and to you specifically, sat with another person they trust, and in the safety of that trust, in the container of a conversation that felt private enough to be honest in, the carefully managed temperature dropped, the control slipped, and what came out was not the edited, measured, strategically considered version of how they feel about you that you have been receiving. What came out was the real version. The one that lives underneath all the composure. The one they have been working very hard to keep at a distance from the full light of day. What came out was that you mean more to them than they have allowed you to know. Considerably more, in a way that surprised even the person they were confiding in, who may have suspected something, who may have sensed the undercurrent of feeling in the dynamic between you, but who was not fully prepared for the scope of what was admitted in that room, because the scope of it is significant. This is not a person who has a mild fondness for you that they have been slightly understating. This is a person who has been carrying something enormous, and the size of what they have been carrying, the full, unedited magnitude of it, was finally, in the safety of that private conversation, allowed to take up its actual space. And it took up a great deal of space. Here is what was said. Not word for word, words are the least of it, the surface of something that runs far deeper than language can cleanly carry. But in essence, in the emotional truth that animated the conversation from beginning to end, they said that you are different, that the way they feel around you is different from the way they feel around anyone else, and they have been trying, genuinely trying, to find a rational explanation for that difference, to attribute it to circumstance or familiarity or the particular timing of when you entered their life, and they have run out of alternative explanations. What remains when all the comfortable rationalizations are exhausted is simply the truth. The truth is that what they feel for you is specific to you, irreducible to anything else, not transferable to another person or another connection or another version of what they thought they wanted before they understood what they actually want. They want you. They said it out loud to another human being in the particular way that saying something out loud to a witness makes it irrevocably real, more real than the thought, more real than the private admission in the dark, more real than the feeling that has been living in them for as long as it has been living in them without a name. It has a name now. They gave it a name. And the name is love, or something so close to love that the distinction is academic. Now, before we go further, before we move into what this means and what is coming and what you are going to need to decide, I want to speak directly to something that is already happening in you as you absorb this. because you are Libra, and Libra's first response to information this significant is rarely simple. It is layered, multiple things happening simultaneously in the interior. A complex, multi-directional emotional response that you are already automatically beginning to organize and assess and contextualize even as you are still in the first moments of receiving it. Part of you feels something that functions like relief, like the confirmation of something you have been sensing but could not verify, a warmth in this connection that seemed to go beyond the ordinary, a quality of attention that felt charged with something unspoken, a dynamic between you and this person that carried more weight than its surface suggested. You felt it, Libra. You have always felt it, with the particular sensitivity you bring to the emotional field of the connections that matter to you. And you did what you do with things that feel significant but unconfirmed. You held it carefully, examined it, turned it over in the light of your intelligence, wondered whether you were perceiving something real or projecting something desired. You were perceiving something real, but alongside the relief, there is something more complicated, a caution, a careful, self-protective part of you that has learned through the specific history of being someone who feels deeply in a world that does not always meet depths with depth, to be thoughtful about what it believes, about what it allows to fully land. This part of you wants to understand the whole picture before it opens, wants to know not just what was said in that private conversation, but why it was said there and not to you. What it means that this person has been carrying this privately for as long as they have. What it says about them and about the connection and about what is actually possible, that the truth found its way to a third party before it found its way to the person it concerns most. These are not unreasonable questions. They are exactly the right questions, and I want to honor them by engaging with them honestly rather than bypassing them in the enthusiasm of delivering good news. The reason it was said to someone else first, the reason the confession happened in a room you were not in rather than directly to your face, is not deception. It is not cowardice, exactly, though fear is certainly part of it. It is something more specifically human and more specifically understandable than either of those words suggests. Saying something of this magnitude to the person it is about requires a kind of courage that most people have to build toward. Has to be approached gradually, in stages, like the acclamation to a very bright light that would be overwhelming if encountered all at once. The third-party conversation was one of those stages. It was the rehearsal, the first external expression of something that has, until now, been entirely internal. The testing of the words against the air of the real world before the far more vulnerable act of testing them against you. You are the bright light, Libra. You have always been. There is something about you, the quality of your perception, the depth of your understanding, the way you see people clearly in a manner that most people simultaneously long for and find slightly terrifying, that makes the act of being fully honest with you both more desirable and more daunting than being honest with almost anyone else. To tell you something true is to have it received with full comprehension, to have it understood at its actual depth, rather than at whatever shallower level it might be absorbed by someone less perceptive. And that kind of reception, full, intelligent, complete, is beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, because there is nowhere to hide in it, no buffer of misunderstanding, no comfortable gap between what was meant and what was understood. They are working up to the absence of that buffer, working up to telling you the true thing in full knowledge that you will receive it completely. And the private conversation was part of that work. Now, let's talk about the content of what else was said, because the declaration of feeling was only the beginning of the conversation. What followed it, the conversation that unfolded in the aftermath of that admission, in the space opened up by finally saying the true thing out loud, is equally significant, and it reveals something about this person that you need to know. They talked about your specific qualities, not in the general "you're a great person" way that people use when they don't actually know someone. In the detailed, particular, this specific thing about you way that is only possible when someone has been paying close and sustained attention. They talked about the way you think, about the specific quality of your mind, the way you hold complexity without needing to resolve it prematurely, the way you find the angle that everyone else missed, the way your intelligence operates with a grace that makes even difficult things feel approachable. They talked about this with a reverence that made the person listening understand something clearly. This is not a passing feeling. This is the admiration of someone who has been paying attention for a long time, who knows what they are talking about, who has accumulated, through sustained and specific observation, a portrait of you that is detailed and accurate and full of genuine awe. They talked about your warmth, about the particular way you make people feel not just comfortable, but genuinely seen, about how there is a quality in the attention you give that is unlike what most people offer, that it lands differently. That being on the receiving end of it feels like being brought into full focus, like suddenly becoming more vivid to yourself, like being truly witnessed by someone whose witnessing matters. They said this with the slight catch in the voice of someone who is describing something they have felt personally and are not entirely sure they can accurately convey to someone who has not experienced it. Because it is, they said, one of those things that needs to be experienced, to be understood. They have experienced it, and they cannot stop thinking about it. They talked about the times with you that stay with them, the conversations that went somewhere unexpected and left them thinking for days, the moments of ordinary closeness that somehow carried the weight of something significant, the specific details that have lodged in their memory with a clarity that is disproportionate to their apparent importance, a gesture, a phrase, a particular look that crossed your face in a moment when you were unguarded, the way you laughed at something in a way that felt genuine rather than performed. They have been cataloging you, Libra, without meaning to, storing the moments. And the stored moments have accumulated into something that can no longer be filed under casual or convenient or simply part of the landscape of their life. It has been filed finally and irrevocably under essential. The person they were confiding in listened to all of this and then asked the obvious question. The one that had been building through the entire conversation, through every admission and every description and every detail offered, with that mixture of vulnerability and certainty that signals something real. They asked, so what are you going to do about it? And the answer that was given in that private room to that trusted person, in the undefended honesty of a conversation that had already gone further than any conversation before it, the answer was that they are going to tell you. Not eventually, not someday in the abstract future where courage is easier to come by, soon, in the specific and approaching near future, with the full weight of everything they have been carrying and everything they have finally admitted and everything they understand now about what you mean to them that they did not understand clearly enough before. They are coming to you with the truth, the real, unmanaged, full temperature truth. And when they arrive with it in whatever form it takes, through whatever channel, in whatever moment of your ordinary life suddenly becomes extraordinary, you are going to feel the entirety of what has just been described landing in real time, all the details, all the specific admiration, all the feeling that has been building in the private interior of someone who loves you and has been loving you from a careful distance for longer than either of you may have fully realized. Libra, I want to prepare you for something, not as a warning, as an act of care, for someone who processes significant emotional moments with such depth that being prepared is genuinely helpful rather than diminishing. When this arrives, when the person stands before you with their truth undefended and their feeling fully visible, your first instinct is going to be to manage the moment, to make it easier for them, to respond in the way that honors their vulnerability and preserves the harmony and creates the conditions in which they feel safe having been honest. This is your nature, and it is beautiful, and in this moment it is also completely unnecessary, because what this person needs from you in that moment is not management, not grace in the diplomatic sense, not the careful, considered, all angles held response of someone navigating a delicate situation with expert skill. What they need, what the moment actually requires, is just you. Your real response. Whatever it is, whatever shape it takes, however complicated or simple or surprising it turns out to be, the unmanaged version. The one that arrives before you have had time to polish it into something more presentable. Because here is what I know about you, Libra, that I want you to know about yourself in this moment. Your real response, your unedited first response to something this genuine, is not something that needs to be managed. It is not something that would cause harm or create imbalance or make the other person regret their honesty. Your real response, when you let it speak before the careful Libra editor gets there, is something exquisite. It is the response of someone who feels deeply and sees clearly and is capable of receiving love with the same fullness and intelligence with which they give it. Trust that response. Trust yourself in this moment more than you usually do. Let it be simpler than you want to make it. Let the truth of what you feel be the first thing rather than the considered, balanced, all perspectives honored thing. You have been considering and balancing and honoring all perspectives for long enough. In this moment, there is only one perspective that matters. Yours. What you feel, what you actually want, what the honest, unedited, this is really me answer is when someone arrives to tell you that you are loved in the specific, detailed, unwavering way that has just been described to a witness who is still sitting with the residue of the conversation, aware that they have been part of something significant. You deserve to be loved like this, not generally, specifically. In the detailed, I have been paying attention, here is what I know about you that you don't know I know way. In the way that sees past the composed exterior to the extraordinary interior. In the way that finds the real you, not the diplomatic, graceful, making everything easier for everyone you, but the complex, feeling, sometimes uncertain, always luminous, real you, and chooses that version specifically, deliberately, with full information. That is what is coming towards you. Someone who has done the private reckoning, who has sat with another person and said the true thing and heard themselves say it and understood in the hearing that there is no taking it back and no wanting to, who is coming to you now with the truth held out like something precious because it is precious, because the truth of how someone feels when they have finally stopped managing it is one of the most precious things one human being can offer another, and hoping with the particular hope of someone who has been brave enough to finally be honest that you will receive it. Receive it, Libra, with both hands and an open heart, in the trust that what is coming towards you has been earned by the quality of who you are, by the specific and irreplaceable thing you bring to the world and to the lives of the people fortunate enough to be in yours. The conversation happened, the truth was spoken, and now it is traveling toward you, carrying everything that was said in that private room, arriving to change the shape of what you thought you understood. Let it change everything. It was always going to